for Jesus' being taken up were fulfilled, he resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On the way, they entered a Samaritan village to prepare for his reception there. But they would not welcome him, because the destination of his journey was Jerusalem. When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked, "Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to consume them?" Jesus turned and rebuked them, and they journeyed to another village. As they were proceeding on their journey, someone said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus answered, "Foxes have dens, and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to rest his head." And to another he said, "Follow me." But he replied, "Lord, let me go first and bury my father." But he answered him, "Let the dead bury their dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God." And another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but first let me say farewell to my family at home." To him Jesus said, "No one who sets a hand to the plow and looks to what was left behind is fit for the kingdom of God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
A man rushed into a jewelry store one evening just before closing and asked for a set of diamond earrings right away. The man behind the counter showed him the different options, and he picked one out immediately. And the clerk asked if he would like him gift wrapped, and the man said, yes, but please hurry. I forgot that today was my anniversary, and right now my wife thinks I'm just taking out the trash. Time was running short for that man, but time was running short for Jesus as well. He was journeying to Jerusalem. Why is he going there? He's going to die on the cross for us. That's going to be his last journey. It's no surprise then that Jesus has a lot to accomplish on this last trip, and he spends a lot of time forming and shaping his disciples. Any good political or business leader knows that one of the most important things you can do to ensure long-term success is to find a successor. Someone who's going to replace you. Someone's going to take up your mantle and going to carry on your mission after you're gone. Time was running short for Elijah, the prophet in the Old Testament as well. He was about to be taken up to heaven in a fiery chariot. But before he made that last journey, God sends him to go and find a successor. Someone who will take up his mantle as prophet and speak to the people. Quite literally, that's where the saying, "take up the mantle," comes from that story. Because Elijah takes off the mantle that he is wearing and the sign of his authority as a prophet, and he puts it on Elisha, the farmer that he meets plowing his fields. It would be as if I were to take off my vestment in the middle of Mass and put it on someone else. It would be clear what I was trying to say. I want this man to succeed me. I have confidence in him. I want him to replace me when I'm gone. I remember once when I was about 16 years old, I was very active in my parish, and I was an altar server, and many people would say to me, "You should think about being a priest." And I did think about being a priest. From the time I was a young boy, 7 or 8 years old, I thought about being a priest. I felt that call of God. But when you're 16 years old, it's not always the first thing you're thinking about. You're thinking about other things, and I kind of kept that call private to myself. Well, anyways, I remember one day after Mass, we were done, and I was serving the Mass as we went back to the sacristy, and my priest, Father Joe, took off his vestment after Mass, and he walked over to me, and he put the vestment on me, and he stepped back and said, "You know what, that fits pretty well." I was a little pushy maybe, but I got the point across. Well, Elisha gets the point as well. When Elijah puts the mantle on him, he realizes, okay, God is calling me to something new. He is calling me to leave behind my life as a farmer and now begin a life as a prophet. Now, this wasn't an easy decision for Elisha to make. Elisha was already a very successful farmer. He was probably very wealthy. We know that because he's out there on the field plowing with 12 yoke of oxen. That's 24 animals. That's an absurd number for a small farmer at that time to have. So he was doing very, very well for himself. And so we would not be surprised if Elisha were to say, "No, I don't want to do that." Or if he accepted the call of God reluctantly. always looking back over his shoulder at what could have been, always filled with regrets about what he left behind. But no, instead, Elisha, to his great credit, does something pretty remarkable. He takes all of his farming equipment and he piles it up into a big pile, and he lights a match and he sets it ablaze, creates a big bonfire. Then he takes the 24 oxen and he slaughters them, and he has a big summer barbecue. He invites everyone to come over. And he's offering it up as a burnt offering to God. What Elisha is doing is he's making a definitive break with his old way of life. There's now no way of going back and being a farmer because his farming equipment, his animals are gone. The only way forward now is to follow God. Reminds me a little bit of the story of the Spanish explorer Cortez when he went to go conquer the Aztec Empire in Mexico. Many people had tried to conquer the Aztecs before because they were attracted by the great treasure of gold and silver that they had. But they had all failed. They had all gotten bogged down in fighting and were ultimately driven back to the sea, and they had to sail home. But when Cortez landed on the Mexican beach, he had his men burn their boats. Now there was no way of going back home. It was either conquer or die. When we meet Jesus in our life, really meet him, there is no going back to our old way of life. Jesus seems so harsh to the would-be disciples in the gospel today. People who want to follow him, people who have a desire to follow him, and yet there's something in their life they can't quite leave behind. One person wants to know if he's going to have security if he follows Jesus. Am I going to have a house to live in? Am I going to have food? What's your pension plan like? One person wants to know if he can just go back and say goodbye to his family before he leaves. One wants to bury his father who has recently died. These all seem like pretty reasonable requests. And yet Jesus says, let the dead bury their dead. None of these people were willing to make the definitive break with their old way of life that Elisha did. How often are we like those would-be disciples? We want to follow Jesus. We feel the call within us. We have a desire to follow God with our whole hearts, and yet something holds us back. There's something we can't let go of. Maybe it's an old sin. Maybe it's an old way of thinking or acting. Maybe it's an unhealthy relationship. We know we need to get rid of it, but we can't. We hold on to it. In our very transitory culture, we have a difficult time even understanding what a true life commitment is. And yet the world badly needs people who are willing to give their whole lives to Christ. Young people especially, God is calling you in a very special way to follow God in your life. He has a mission for you and a plan. He created you with this plan in mind. And your future families badly need parents who are going to be willing to commit to the lifelong bond of marriage. The church badly needs young people to stand up and be priests and religious. And I won't be as pushy as Father Joe, but I would certainly invite the young men in our parish especially to ask themselves whether or not God is calling you to be a priest. And not to keep that call inside of you, but come talk to me about it. I'd be glad to talk to you about what it means to be a priest. I can speak from experience that being a priest is not always easy. Like any vocation, it means taking up your cross and following Jesus, but it's always been joyful and surprising and wonderful to see what God has done in my life. And I would never look back. Next week, we celebrate another anniversary. Did you forget it? You can rush out to the fireworks store instead of the jewelry store if you want. It's Independence Day. It's the anniversary of our nation's founding. As we celebrate the freedom that we're so proud of as a country, we have to remember what true freedom is. True freedom is not just the ability to do whatever you want whenever you want it, as many people think. In fact, to be at the whim of your passions like that can actually be a terrible form of slavery. No, true freedom is the ability to follow Christ, to choose what is good, to give my life away in love. For freedom, Christ has set you free, St. Paul says. Do not submit again to the yoke of slavery. Elisha was one of the most free men alive because he had given up his farming equipment, killed his animals, gotten rid of it all. And now he was totally free to follow Elijah, to follow God. Jesus was the most free man that anyone had ever met. That's why he was so attractive. He wasn't weighed down and burdened by the things that weigh us down, by the need for approval, for the need for possessions and wealth, for ideas, false ideas about what our life should be. He didn't have to follow the way of the world. What holds us back from following Jesus with our whole heart? Whatever it is, can we leave that farming equipment behind? Can we burn the boats? Can we put our hand to the plow and not look back? And so be truly free.